Amy and Cadent and all that, literally no roadwork signs.
Welcome everybody to Lichfield District Planning Committee meeting. Today's date, and I've completed 21st of July 2025. This is a publicly broadcast meeting and is streamed live via our website and is available on YouTube. We therefore ask that you conduct yourselves in an appropriate manner. Welcome those present in the public seating area and ask that you be respectful to committee members, its officers, as well as those speaking. I ask that you remain seated and quiet during these proceedings. My name is Councillor Chetland, Chair of Lichfield Planning Committee. In a moment, I will ask everyone participating in the meeting to introduce themselves. Before doing so, can I remind everyone in the meeting to ensure that your mobile phone and electronic devices are either switched off or muted throughout this session. Those who have registered to speak, please ensure that your content is relevant to the material to the debate in hand, and you are mindful to the allotted speaking time. If you go over this time, you will be asked to stop immediately. You'll be given notice when there's 30 seconds left. When speaking, for the particular benefit of those people at home, as well as those in the room, and you speak clearly so you can be heard, nothing's missed. Just a reminder, Planning Committee is a non-political, quasi-judicial committee bound by the National Planning Policy Framework, Lichfield Local Plan and Supplementary Planning Guidance. Our decisions are informed by planning considerations tied to these policies. It is not a pure science. We must weigh up the benefit and harm when coming to review. The arrangements for conducting this meeting will be as follows. Officers will introduce each application. Any members of the public, applicants, agents or councillors who speak will be invited to address the committee in turn. Members are invited to keep their questions to the point and on matters of clarification for planning issues only. Technical questions or clarification of details of the application will generally be best directed to the officers. Committee members will then discuss and decide on the officers' recommendations on each application. May I also be clear that we cannot receive questions or comments from anyone in the public seating area. Please be assured that the committee will aim to thoroughly question and consider all matters before it in coming to a decision. When we come to the vote on each application, I will initially ask all members to confirm if they are minded to move the recommendations in the report by raising their hand. I will then ask those of you voting against the recommendations or abstaining to confirm the specific planning reasons you are doing so. In the event of the vote being carried against the officer's recommendation, I'll ask officers to comment on the validity of the planning reasons, and if recommended by officers, we'll ask members to vote again on whether to defer the item for a further report or for those reasons. If for any reason a member is not present for the whole of the item, they will be asked not to vote on that application. I'm going to move around the table clockwise from myself. So I'm going to announce myself. I'm Councillor Chetland, I'm Chair of Planning.
Councillor Derek Cross.
We'll go through the councillors first and then we'll come to the officers afterwards.
Councillor Serena Mayers.
Councillor Matthew Wallins.
Councillor Tom Marshall.
Councillor David Salter.
Councillor Sonia Wilcox.
Councillor Hugh Ashton.
Councillor Anne Hughes.
Councillor Sharon Taylor. Councillor Di Evans.
Councillor Michael Galvin.
Councillor Andrew Rushton.
Okay, if the officers can now present themselves.
Richard Thomas, I'm the Highways Consultant from Staffs County Council.
Ian Long, Managing Consultant for LWM Planning.
Gareth Ball, Principal Planning Officer.
Claire Ward, Legal Advisor.
Artemis Ansell, Director of Planning and Regeneration.
Christine Lewis, Elections and Democratic Manager.
Sinead Cartwright, Governance Officer.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item. Apologies for absence, please.
Yes, Chair, we've received 2 apologies from councillors Powell and Anktel.
Thank you. Declarations of interest in relation to two applications today. Councillor Rushen?
Just that I'm for the first application, land at Street Hay.
Okay. Any further declarations? Councillor Mears?
Regarding the application, land west of Lions Den, Hammerwich, Burnt Woods, I own land to the east, the other side of the road, quite a distance away.
Further declarations? Right, just one from myself then. I'm declaring an interest in that I know the owners of the nearby land off Lions Den. And also since the last application, I've received a number of emails from councillors, residents, both for and against, and copies of WhatsApp messages, all of which I have sent in to monitoring officers and to the planning department for their actions. The running order, on the basis we've got a lot of people here, is going to turn a little bit, and we're going to look at the application for Hammerwich first, which is application number 24/01169/FULM.
Excuse me, Chair. Can we have the minutes of the last meeting, please?
Sorry, I was too busy
Sorry,
writing down
sorry.
the declarations.
Sorry. Yes, sorry. Can I move the minutes of the last meeting, please?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any things to be said?
Yes, Chair. I'd like to make a statement, if I may, please.
You may.
I'm sorry that the tone or nature of one of the direct comments by myself at the last meeting may have caused concern to some of you and left some individuals feeling uncomfortable. That was certainly not the intention. I value the professionalism of all those who contribute to our committee and understand how important it is that everyone feels respected and supported. Please accept my apologies.
Thank you very much. Moving on to this next application. This is a continuation following the deferral of the application at our last meeting on the 30th of June. We deferred it at that time for a site visit for construction management plan. Further details, M6 toll to be consulted and get their response, and for further information on the communications tower. As the debate is already part way through, those councillors that weren't part of the last debate, which is Councillor Taylor, I meant to say welcome. You're back here again. Councillor Marshall, you came on the site visit, but as it's a continuation, you didn't do the first part of the argument. So you can sit and listen. I'm afraid on this occasion, you're not in a position to join in or to have a vote. It's down to those that have heard the whole of the presentation. Now, normally for a deferral, there is not an opportunity to speak for objectors or applicants. I've used chair's dispensation to allow Councillor Lung to do a brief resume again. Once the presentation has been put forward, to cover any points that you think hadn't been clarified sufficiently or anything you didn't manage to get to say last time. And I'd ask you to stick to a maximum of 5 minutes for that if you feel you need to use all of it. Okay. Across to Gareth Ball to do the presentation for us, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a very quick presentation. As you mentioned, this is a continuation of the previous committee. So I'm just going to give an update on the new things that have been received, and I've also got all the old slides at the end of the presentation. So if there's anything you want to pull up, mention it. There we go. So as the chair has said, this application was deferred from the 30th of June committee. For the reasons that he gave. Only thing to add to that is on the communications tower, and that's now been removed from the scheme, so that is no longer a consideration, and updated plans have been received that take that out. Thanks again to members for their time on the site visit last week. We drove the construction route in separate cars in groups. then also entered the site and walked down the red lines into that main section of the site there at the end of the site visit. Members will be aware that a supplementary report was published on Friday, providing updates. Essentially, these were that M6 Toll have removed their objection. There were tweaks to 2 conditions, 6 and 26, which were a result of, they worked towards M6 Toll removing their objection. We received 2 additional representations, one from which Parish Council, and received a petition containing 114 signatures objecting to the proposal. Since that was published on Friday, we received 1 more objection over the weekend. Just briefly touching on some of the issues raised. One of them was about wooden posts surrounding a green, just where Lions Den meets Hall Lane, and that an HGV in the past hit these lines and damaged power cables. So in response to that, I pulled up the applicant did a traffic survey, showed that HGVs currently use these roads. And also this is the swept path analysis, just showing that vehicles can safely navigate this section of the road. We don't have any evidence to the contrary, and Staffordshire County Council Highways team reviewed the application and support the development. And it's probably a good time just to mention, as you saw introduced, Richard Thomas is a highways officer here who, if we have any technical questions, we can put them across to him. The other issues raised, so we had a mention of a disused quarry to the west of the site and that this should be a better site for the application. The applicants confirmed that this site will be too far from the grid. Also, again, I imagine off the top of my head, there'd be land contamination, stability issues. And just to remind members that the applicant isn't required to demonstrate an alternative, assess alternative sites on this application. We have to assess the application in front of it based on its merits on the day. Second bullet point, so also received information that the additional Midlands best capacity is not required. Contains a link to the non-government website, but does quote some figures from the Clean Power Action Plan, essentially saying that when you take together all the approved and progressed and as built best sites, there's no longer a need in the Midlands. But if you look at this, you'll see the actual as built is very low and under capacity. Also want to make members aware that there was an appeal on the BESS in Drakelow, about 25-minute drive from our site, which was in South Derbyshire District Council, about 2 weeks ago, where the appeal was overturned, a planning permission was granted. In that application, that issue was raised, where the inspector considered it and noted it. But as I've said, said that be aware that not all of these are actually built out and didn't consider it a reason for refusal, and she went on to allow the appeal. We've also had an email about archaeology matters, that the development could harm archaeological assets, including Roman ruins. And I also received from the councillor some correspondence which appeared to be between that same person that sent in the objection and also Stoke-on-Trent Archaeological Museum Society. In the response from the Museum Society, they seem to say that no traces of Roman features were found when they were took a nearby big, albeit not on site. They noted that the site was distant from the Staffordshire Hoard and recommended that Staffordshire County Council archaeology team should be contacted, who were contacted when we originally consulted on the application, and they support the application subject to condition 11. You'll see, which is an archaeological project design, and that will include programme of works and also site investigations and post fieldwork assessment, which comes to us for review under a condition before any of the real work goes ahead. That's just an update on the original issues. I just remind everyone, it's a bit delay on this. Yeah. Just to remind everyone, the conflicts that we identified last time were the loss of agricultural land, the impact on landscape and views. We weighed those up against the public benefits. It's still really thick. Heads up to you in a second. Yeah, it's weird. You almost need to go left, right a little bit. So yeah, it was obviously the main public benefit being contribution towards national energy storage and moving towards net zero targets, improving energy flexibility, the financial biodiversity net gain on site, and also the job creation. Thanks, Chair. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Councillor, I'm very conscious that I didn't give you a huge amount of time to prepare something, but by all means come forwards and ask anything further. Present anything further.
Good evening all, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. While I've just been informed, I couldn't let this opportunity slip by to represent the views of Hamwich. So over the past week, the residents of Hamwich have been felt deeply let down. The short notice of today's meeting and the fact that a number of directors were denied a chance to speak what has been described as an admin error is concerning. So this is quite troubling, given new information has regards to the site has come to light. Despite these challenges, once again, the turnout from Hamwich residents today demonstrate how much this planning applications means to us. Local residents have gone above and beyond, even managed to get over 100 signatures for a petition to proposal, even though we're given to Friday morning to submit it. Had we had more than 2 days, I'm sure we would have much more signatures. Residents have also questioned the rush nature of this process. So why is this application being pushed so quickly, especially when the review of the Green Grey Belt is scheduled for autumn? Should we have clarity on the review before making decisions that could irreversibly affect our Green Belt? The members may know the government stance is clear. So new developments should prioritise brownfield sites, and there are many suitable brownfield site options nearby. So I ask members, are there truly very special circumstances that justify sacrificing this valued greenbelt land? And do we really need this battery energy storage system to compromise Hamwich's identity, safety and natural environment? It is worth noting that in Parliament, there have been debating legislation to regulate battery energy storage system. Without such regulation, large companies are exploiting this grey area to move forward with potentially dangerous projects, knowing what they can do without stringent safety checks. Do you want Lichfield District to be a place where these companies take advantage of loopholes, especially when accidents have already occurred with similar systems across the UK? And members, it's not just about Hamwich. Do we need more sites of these battery energy storage systems in the area? As rising applications have been rising sharply across Staffordshire, Midlands and beyond. So these corporate giants, are they targeting cheaper land in rural areas to make millions, while local communities gain nothing? So at least housing developments may contribute VASIL to community infrastructure levy, but these battery storage systems do not bring benefit, they only bring risk and environmental harm. So looking at the big picture, so research has mentioned that the Midlands is already saturated. So according to UK Government Renewable Energy Planning Database, we have exceeded targets for both 2025 and 2030 by significant margins. Well, basically over 100% for both of these targets. Market is oversupplied, meaning no further consent should be granted. So therefore, this application does not meet the criteria for very special circumstances required to justify development on green belt land. Members, this isn't just about Hamwich, it will set a precedent for how green belt land will be treated across the Lichfield district. Our residents are awaiting further replies for land's history at the same time right now, as very short notice to inquire about this archaeology site. So to develop on this site means that it will destroy any further investigation for the Roman remains, which could be another Staffordshire hoard. So I ask you all today, members, to think about the long-term impacts of this application. Your decision set the tone for our future planning applications in Lichfield district. I urge you to reject this planning proposal, listen to the voices of those who live here, who here as well, protect the future of Hamwich and the Green Belt. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. A few for questions from councillors. Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Chair. If this proposal is approved this evening, I have concerns, having visited the site, I have concerns about the route of the construction traffic. It has been raised, I appreciate in the past, but having now seen it myself, I don't quite understand why, if this goes ahead, the A5 itself could not be used. The route given is quite circuitous. It passes many residences. It's on narrow lanes. There are issues that have been raised about the bollards and the electricity. For me, it seems obvious that a left in and out only on the A5 at the junction with Lynesden is the obvious answer, using only the eastbound carriageway. It's done in many areas locally, indeed on that stretch of road. Only a mile away is the junction that used to be a cut through the dual carriageway at Wall. That is now left in and out. Again, a similar thing a couple of kilometres away is the petrol station and near Moss Farm, if you know the area there, where again it's a left out only down to an island. And because there are islands either side of that junction, one 1 kilometre to the west and the other only 800 metres to the east, very easy for vehicles to turn whichever the direction they're in, to head eastwards to come in, or head out eastwards and go around the island if they need to go west. So as I said, that's my big concern there. It needs to be so much easier. It'll be a shorter journey for the vehicles through easier roads.
So I think that's a question for highways.
I'll fire off quickly because the applicant sent in. Essentially, they've said in some of the submission documents they did pre-application with National Highways, who haven't objected based on the current route. Essentially, National Highways were saying a complete no to any access onto there, both in and out, due to speed of that road at national speed limit, and also an HGV turning in or out would have to use both lanes. And then they provided in the March technical note, Highways technical note, they provided swept path analysis for that junction, which shows that an HGV have to occupy both lanes to get around that corner. And there's land under separate ownership on one side of it, so it's not realistic that you could make junction improvements. So I know where you're coming from, and we said that when we first saw the application, but you know they've demonstrated why they can't do it, and we essentially have to look at the application they're proposing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There's three things I wanted to point up that have been a big major concern for me, and I have asked when we went to the site visit last week. On the first build, there's that train bridge where obviously I mentioned out about lorries potentially parking there or turning around, because that bridge hasn't been surveyed to my knowledge for a long time. I was wondering if, obviously, if this goes through, a big if, would it be possible to put a bridge survey to get that bridge surveyed, for one, and then two, on the field 2, I think it is that the fence where you can walk over to get onto the train line? I was wondering how that's going to be separated from the public and the HGV, and then 3 on field 3, ironically. Where you can walk on the train line if a fire did occur, and how would you protect the public from a potential fire outbreak, or if not, cordon that section off so the public can't get there? Thank you.
I'll go in order. The train bridge, the train bridge is off the application site, and it's off the road that HGVs will use. I imagine it's highly unlikely an HGV is going to use that. I don't know even if they could easily get in there. I ran it past the applicant after we discussed, and we could put some sort of condition on saying vehicles will only use the roads provided on site. But I would imagine they're not going to use the bridge essentially. But if it's something that's required, we could put on basically a condition requiring compliance that any HGVs will not go off the roads when entering in and progressing the site. On the second one, the public right of way. So they've got in we've had it in we've got a condition basically securing traffic management, and that will ensure that there'll be fences put up on both parts of those roads, and there'll be banksmen there at all times. So when a vehicle comes along, fences will go down, and which will stop the vehicle and allow the public across. And when there's no public there, those come up, the other ones go down, so the vehicle comes through. And then in line with the requirements of public's right of way, preference will always be given to pedestrians over vehicles. And then the last one, in terms of fire, so the fire service have looked at this and support the application. And one of the factors is distance from the best units to whatever it is we're looking at, whatever sensitive receptor, and that side is over the 25 meters. So essentially the fire service are fully satisfied that there'd be no issue there. And then there's a set of fire mitigation measures that I can go through, which essentially are to stop fire spreading from the site. Again, it's in line with the National Fire Chiefs Council guidance, and the fire service have reviewed it and are in full support of it.
Yeah, thank you. Going back to the bridge, I know HGVs are on tachographs, and the likelihood of drivers being close to time in terms of tachograph time is very likely. So obviously, after 4.5 hours of driving, they got a 45-minute break, or they can be split into two. But my worry is, if they're that close to obviously the break on the tachograph, they would obviously pull in there, just have the break, so they can be legally fined. So that'd be one of the bigger concerns I'd have.
So the bridge just on site, just off when we were in the fields, yeah.
Field 1, and it's down on the right-hand side, yeah.
See, at that point, they're almost in the site, and there's ample space within the site to park. I mean, I imagine it's only another 30 seconds of driving from there into the site, so I'm just unlikely they're going to stop. Also, at that point, they will be under the escort cars, so they're going to be directed through to the site. They'll have to follow that front escort car, which is going to follow the construction route. So, I mean, I'd say it's almost zero likelihood that and the parking is, obviously provided within the site. Unlikely.
Councillor Mears.
Good evening. And thank you. Could I ask you just to remind me what the grade of the agricultural land is?
So it's grade 3B, moderate, so it's not best and most versatile.
So if I might read you this from the agricultural land classification system, 3B is moderate quality land with limitations that affect the choice of crop, timing of cultivation, harvesting. This land produces moderate yields. So it's still classed as land that will produce a crop. When we visited the site, the land was still being actively used in agriculture for grazing. All 3 fields were being used. On Google Maps, looking at the location of the site, I'm concerned because could you remind me what distance from Brown Hills was it highlighted as being?
Brown Hills. Can you take the first question first, or does that come back to?
My first question is, the land is graded at 3B, which the agricultural land grade is still classed as, good land, and it's still actively being used. And in the applicant's documents, they write that after the site is cease use, they will refer it back to being green belts. So that indicates that they agree that it's green belt land currently. Can you confirm that?
So, hang on. Let me make sure I don't miss a point. See, and then you have to remind me what the Brown Hills point was. But in terms of the agricultural land classification, that's a national system.
Yeah.
This is 3B, we've accepted it at that. 3B is not best and most versatile land. It's not categorised that. And actually the South Derbyshire District Council appeal that I mentioned, where the appeal was allowed 2 weeks ago, they had I think it was about 3 times the size of this site was 3A. So good quality land being lost, and the inspector on the balance found that the benefits of the scheme, net zero, etc., outweighed that. So something to think about, a site 25 minutes down the road that had 3 times the amount of high quality land, and the inspector still came out on the balance. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not best and most versatile 3B. In terms of green belt, I'm not sure where that's written. I haven't got the document in front of me, but No, the applicant's planning statement makes the discussion for grey belt, and you know, it's not. I suppose maybe they meant green fields. I don't know if it says green fields, but I mean, you can't necessarily return something to being green belt with grey belt being a thing, because you know that's an assessment that has to be made at that time, and obviously things can change, so they wouldn't be able to say that they can return to.
I think the wording was to return it to Greenbelt, so that indicates that it is Greenbelt now rather than Greybelt.
They've made a big assessment in their application saying that it's grey belt, so I imagine that's just an error in.
You can confirm it is Greenbelt, don't they?
So the way green belt and grey belt work is it's not necessarily a separate thing. It's on when you make an assessment on an application, there is, if you look at my report, it takes you through the assessment of it, and you go through those elements, those steps. If you get back, if all accords, then it's grey belt. So no, it's not like we're rebranding the land as grey belt. We're just saying we're looking at the circumstances and it meets the requirements for grey belt, and we're saying therefore it's being assessed as grey belt. If I'm sure there's some I'm trying to think of circumstances. If I was trying to come up with a theoretical, but that could change if, I don't know, a new town was down in the next 50 years in the middle, maybe then it would be on the periphery. It's an assessment that's made as part of a green belt review, or on the day when you're looking at an item and making an assessment on an area of land in the green belt. So no, they're definitely not saying it's green belt. Their submission makes that quite clear.
Confirm. They assume that it is Greenbelt and they will return it to Greenbelt.
Yes. They've also got pages and pages of them saying that it's grey belt and then going through the assessment for grey belt. One thing I assume it means read that as green fields, I would assume.
Just in relation to this application, this has been presented to us, and I accept we did have a lot of discussion about grey belt last time, and this is being presented as a planning application of very special circumstances and to be considered as a green belt decision. There was an argument put forward last time in relation to grey belt, that in fact that when we get round to the autumn look at as to what is and isn't, this may well come under the grey belt category. At this point, it's been put forward as a very special circumstances to build on green belt, and I get that, and I think the committee.
It is grey belt, sorry, to put forward as I then did an assessment. Under
Yes, then you did this. Yes. Just from a layperson's point of view, this field, I accept it's 3B, and it sits next to the M6 toll. So I wouldn't eat anything off that field in the same way I won't pick anything that grows next to a road. And there weren't any horses in this field when we did this visit, so I don't know whether it is generally used. We're in the two fields preceding, I agree. Wanted to make that point in relation to the very special circumstances.
My next question regards the traffic. I can address this through you, Chair, to Gareth. You've mentioned that the swept path, that Staffordshire Highways have assessed the swept path and feel that a lorry accessing Lions Den from the A5 would need both lanes to turn in. Would you say that the entrance there, bear in mind there are two lanes on the entrance, a left and a right hand side of the lane, which is demarked with a white line. Would you say that that is larger or smaller than the entrance off Coppice Lane? And my point being here, that the entrance off the Walter Road into Coppice Lane, the road doesn't have two lanes going each way. So if the rejection from the highways comes because the lorry would need two lanes on the A5, I don't feel it's a different lorry going into Coppice Lane, and yes, it would be going into the path of the oncoming traffic.
Thank you.
So what's happening there is that there will be some junction improvements coming off the Coppice Lane onto where?
Vauxhall Road into Coppice Lane.
Oh, okay.
Of the routing.
I mean, it's on the swept path analysis. It fits. I mean, the point being that road is a slower road, and I mean, but it's The swept path analysis is online. It's available to look at, and you can see for yourself where it fits and where it doesn't fit. That's what SEC Highways have looked at. That's what I've looked at. I've seen no evidence to the contrary, so that's where we've got to go off. I don't know if you.
That's okay, Chair, through you. So I think the question relates to what's the difference between coming off the 461 into Coppice Lane compared to coming off the A5 onto Lyons Den. That's what I sort of, if that's correct, where the essence is. So I think initially the A5 trunk road isn't within county council jurisdiction, so we don't have a comment on it. We can't direct or refuse. So that information came during the pre-application. So stuff my colleagues have done during this application is just take Coppice Lane at its merits. So it is quite an extreme traffic management plan where you've got escort vehicles in front and behind a vehicle. And it's the sort of construction we would do if we were building something as a county that requires that kind of road to get to it. Obviously, we have to build narrow roads as well. So all we've done really is assess the swept path to get into, knowing that it's going to take up all of the roads. That's been put up front by the applicant. And then, as Gareth said, there are some junction improvements planned for Lyons Den itself into the site, and they're on the application side. But from Walsall Road, it does work.
If I may make a brief comment on that, it does appear that because Highways said no, there was only one route left to use. So literally had no other option but to say yes. That's how that answer comes across.
This has been assessed on its merits. If this wasn't acceptable, in the views of SEC Highways, myself, this would have been refused, and we would never have seen the application come to committee. It's been back and forth. It's at a point now where we are saying it's acceptable. It's not a matter of settling for the worst option or this has to go through. It's not that at all. This has been looked at, it's been weighed up, and they've provided everything they need, and subject to the 3 or 4 highways related conditions, we're supporting it. That's simply where we're at.
Thank you. We'll move on to Councillor Galvin, please.
Sorry, can I interrupt? I've got one more question, if I may.
What?
Thank you. I noticed on the Staffordshire Fire Service report that they make the point, I'll just find it in my notes, bear with me a moment, that they wanted clarification on how access was proposed to work should the fire service need to get there, and the flow rate should be provided. They wanted the details of access for pumping and a detailed and suitable design, and for it also to be confirmed that the water supply tank within the site would be suitable for purpose. I've been unable to find that information in the documents, so I currently feel that the Staffordshire Fire Service actually haven't had that information, and we don't have that information to make a decision on the safety of the site.
To the officer, because
is that the most recent comment from them?
I'm mentioning it because I couldn't find the update that confirmed the flow rate and the tank and access to the site. Bear in mind they plan to put gates on the entrance.
As in, okay, I mean, the flow rates, you're talking about the fire mitigation water, yeah. So that has all been resolved. There's 228 cubic meter tanks, I think, and the National Fire Chiefs Council require, I think it's a 19,000 litre per minute or hour rate for 2 hours, and that is the standard applied across the country. That's what they demonstrated with this site, and fire service, maybe you're looking at different comments, but the fire service have seen that in the updated GG 104 risk assessment. That's been provided, and they're satisfied with that. Also, originally, I know they had one query originally about some of the lanes, but obviously in working to resolve the initial objection from SEC Highways, that's all been addressed, and the fire service were happy with that. And then they did have an issue, maybe it's about access within the route, and that's why that secondary fire access route was provided. So now they have 360 through the site, and there's a planning condition that must be kept available at all times to ensure that there's always a secondary access.
So I was wondering access to the site, the actual entrance to the site.
In terms of contract not getting through the gates. Yes, they've not raised any objection to that. We can add, there's an emergency response plan condition in there. I don't see any harm in putting an extra bullet point in there for some sort of measures to open the gate. I don't have that exact detail right now. It might well be in there, but
Emergency services will have emergency access points, and they'll have electronic keypads and codes that can be sent in advance and be supplied with any access they need to get into somewhere.
We just don't have that information here to make a decision on.
It's national standard. Okay. Councillor Galvin?
Couple of points. Hopefully I'll be quicker. I know the area well, travel down the area quite often on my way to work. I've heard people say about HGVs. Anyone that knows the area will know, especially during harvest time, lots of lorries come down that road and go under that bridge. And so I don't know how big we're imagining these lorries to be for the building. I'm guessing they'll get through there. The other one is, I haven't expressed an interest in this site. I don't own any property there, but I understand aspects of building on Greenbelt. One of the attractions of living in Burntwood is how pretty and green the surrounding area is. So my question's one for a legal advisor. If we were to make a decision for emotional reasons and not following the law which is set down, and we lost, would that increase costs to the council? And could that effectively go towards an increase in council tax because of emotion and not pragmatism and not what we were elected for and why we're sat here? My question. And the follow-up is, can we have, I suggest we accept it, have a pragmatic view that, you know, we don't really have much choice, and I suggest we vote for it.
Thank you.
They have to be
Yeah, almost.
So committee, you'll be aware that refusal has to be on planning grounds, and obviously if a application is refused but is overturned on appeal, there could be costs against the council that could be awarded. How much that will be will depend on, you know, say what sort of figure that would be. Whether that would have an impact on the council tax setting would depend on your, you know, how much the award of costs is and how much you need to find to be able to pay for it.
Okay, Councillor Hughes?
It's perhaps been covered to some extent by Councillor Galvin. I understand that the main period where there'll be a great deal of HGV and other traffic is during the construction rather than the operation of the site. And I agree. I thought after the site visit, it's a small area, it's not very visible, it's near the road, and I will vote to be voting to accept it. But I had a slight worry about the traffic management plan for during construction, about the hours of operation, largely because I didn't understand them. I was on page 26, I think, probably of last time, about what peak hours there were. And I think that could be just checked.
I can find it, but you might know off the top of your head. I think
It just seemed to be they were very long. Yeah.
so I think the ones I gave were sort of off peak hours. So essentially they're going to try and schedule the HGVs outside peak hours, which I think are 10 to 4 on a weekday.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, okay, it's probably maybe just confused, but
So it would be the other way around.
Yeah.
They're trying to avoid.
okay, no, that was the Angus thing I didn't quite follow.
The one on a weekend. Councillor Wallens, you want to say?
Thank you, Chair. It was just a quick question. I forgot. Is there any waiting points in around the area? If so, where is the waiting points as for the HGVs?
There are 2, and sadly we're presenting from our own laptops. The traffic management plan, but they are in there. Yeah, if you got it.
That's set out in the construction traffic management plan and in the technical note that supported it. They've committed, the applicant's committed to some organised waiting points. I'm pretty sure one is Norton Keynes services. So I'm just going to find those two and another question. But I've got the document, but they are listed. And so it's part of the application, and therefore when we condition it or when the child does it, it'll be captured. Just give me a second, I'll find them.
Okay. Councillor Cross, I've got next.
Thank you, Chair. Well, sitting back once again, like I did the last time, there seems to be quite a few procedural irregularities here. I'd like to sort of address a point which Councillor Mears raised, and you're probably not going to be happy that I'm going back to that, but I'm going back to it anyway. Page 29, paragraph 4, for the benefit of the officer, states to protect the openness of the green belt, landscape character of the surrounding area in 50 years' time. That's also mentioned again in paragraph 5. Now, if it is a grey belt, wording of that needs to be changed from green belt to grey belt, because how can you change in 50 years' time it back to green belt and pasture grazing, as it does state, if it's grey belt nil? They're either going to change it back to grey belt or they're going to change it back to green belt. And if they're going to change it back to green belt, that says in black and white it's green belt nil. So if you disagree with me, then that wording, which is your document, needs to be changed.
Where is that, sorry?
That's on page 29, paragraph 4 and 5
Of my report.
on the report before us. I don't know who wrote the report before us.
I mean, essentially, it cannot be chosen to be returned to green belt or grey belt. There's no sort of everlasting distinction between the two. It can change. Something can be grey belt. It may not always be grey belt. You know, obviously, if it doesn't come through the green belt review, then you're making an assessment of it at that time that you're looking at the application, which we've done here, gone through everything and said, you know, I'm recommending that it's grey belt. It wouldn't be up to the applicant or anyone to then essentially, okay, sorry, I get where it comes from. So it's still green belt. The grey belt sits within the green belt. So it still has its green belt designation. It's just that when you're assessing that, you then say, oh, this section of green belt is actually grey belt. So sorry, it would still maintain its designation. It's just that within that, I appreciate that, but you know, it's come at a national level and we need to abide by the national policy that's put in front of us. So it would be returned to green belt effectively, as long as there were no changes to the boundaries within that time. Who knows in 50 years, but it may well still be grey belt at that point, or situation might have changed and then we might look at it again in 50 years time for something else and say, no, it's not grey belt, circumstances have changed, if that makes sense.
So that clarifies then that it is green belt, but it's got a grey belt status.
Sorry, exactly. But then it does need to be looked at if members agree it's grey belt as grey belt within the assessment. Yeah.
I'm pleased to hear that, because there's been a lot of arguing about that. We've now got to the bottom of it. It's green belt with a grey belt status.
Essentially, yeah, so you could say that.
That isn't exactly what's been said. It is currently green belt. An assessment has been done by the officer that says that it could be classified as grey belt. It may be that when the review takes place, it does remain as green belt. Maybe there's another review in 10 years' time, 20 years' time that moves the gradients completely. At this point in time, it is green belt with an officer assessment of grey belt with a review at a later time, call it grey belt. What we have before us, very special circumstances with a view to what's going to move forwards from this committee. Councillor Evans, please.
Chair, yes, I recognise that this is an emotive issue, but I think that over time, and certainly since the site visit, a number of concerns have been rectified and been addressed, and I understand, and I'm just asking for confirmation, that the tower that some people were concerned about before has now been removed because there's fibre optic connectivity. So I think that's an important issue that a number of people were concerned about. Also the sensitive construction of a lighting scheme is really important, particularly for wildlife. So I'm as far as I'm concerned, I go along with the application as it stands because I don't think we've got any reasons not to accept the recommendations of the officers.
Are you proposing it, Councillor Evans?
It's already been proposed by Councillor Garvin.
Sorry,
by Councillor.
Councillor Howard. Okay, I want one last comment then.
If I may ask Gareth, can you confirm how far the site is from both Brown Hills and Hammerwich?
Is there a mistake in the report? Is that what you're getting at? Is there a?
I'm just waiting for you to help me out with those figures.
Okay. If you've got an error in the report that obviously online for this committee, I've been handed a note. So 2.25 kilometres. I think it said something different in the report.
From both built-up areas, is that the distance from both?
From Brown Hills, if that is an increase over what I said in the report, then what we were considering there was distance from towns in terms of grey belt considerations. So an increase would.
Is there a point you're trying to make?
Yes. I'm looking for information to confirm that as it's seen on Google Maps, that the site could potentially be equidistant from Brown Hills and Hammerwich. And as such, it fundamentally breaches the principle of Greenbelt because the reason Greenbelt exists is to maintain open space and prevent urban sprawl. By building a battery storage site halfway between both, you have effectively or will effectively remove that level of protection between Hammerwich merging into Brown Hills because not currently, but it will potentially be designated grey belts. Then adjoining sites can then be classed as grey belts, and you have effectively, in one decision, made it so that Brown Hills can join up with Hammerwich. And I'm looking to understand the measurements of the site between Brown Hills and Hammerwich because they're the two closest built-up areas.
So measurements aside, I'm happy to go through the grey belt assessment in the report again if it helps.
At the moment, I've got someone proposing that we accept, and that is Councillor Galvin. And I've got Councillor Evans seconding. Sorry, Councillor Hughes seconding.
Yeah,
I'm very happy.
Yeah, if I could just make a very quick comment on what Councillor Mears has just said. I think just to remind members that we can only deal with the planning application proposal that's in front of us. We cannot speculate on any future development proposals that may or may not come before yourselves or before us as officers, and it cannot be considered as part of this assessment or decision this evening. Just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Okay, with that in mind then, I'm going to put this motion to the vote. So we're looking at the application 24/01169/FULM, land west of Lionsden, Hammerwich. The recommendation is to accept. All those in favour, please. All those against, please. Any abstentions? Okay, that application is carried on a vote of 6-4 with 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take a short break of 5 minutes. We move on to the next application. Do that.
Yeah.
I
Just left the room to get some water, so we usually comes back. Until he comes back into the room, yes, please. Still a bit, eh?
Hi there,
Thank you, councillors. Short break. We're now going to resume the meeting. The time is now 7:01, and we're going to move on to the application 240101/REMM, London Street Hay Road. I'm going to ask Long to do the presentation. We do have two speakers on this. Susan Ragg, is she here? Will speak as an objector, and Helen Dawkins will speak on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The application before you now under reference 24/01101/REMM, seeking reserve matters approval, namely appearance, landscape and layout and scale for the erection of 200 dwellings and associated infrastructure, drainage and public open space, land at Street Hay, Phase 2, Burton Road, Street Hay, Lichfield. The application is submitted pursuant to application reference 19/01015/OUTM. Secured outline consent with all matters reserved except for access in respect of the erection of up to 200 residential dwellings for Phase 2 of the Street Hay Strategic Development Allocation, site reference LC1, including green infrastructure, footpaths, open space, children's play area, surface and foul water drainage, including attenuation pond, and other ancillary infrastructure and works. The outline of consent was granted on 4th April 2024, following being considered by Planning Committee. As such, the principle of development, as well as the means of accessing the proposal, have been considered and approved by way of the outline consent and are not for consideration or reconsideration through the reserved matters application before you today. Additionally to this, the site also benefits from allocation in the adopted local plan allocations document 2008-2029. The site L2, Lichfield 2, east of Lichfield, Street Hay, SDA, extension land north of Roman Heights. As conditioned on the outline consent, a site-specific design code and master plan was required to be submitted prior to a reserve matter submission. Details for these documents have been approved under 19/01015/DISCH and have directly influenced the proposals submitted under this application. From the comments received during the consultation on the application and as reflected in the council call-in, it is clear there is concern regarding potential impacts that could arise during the construction period of the proposals, as well as during occupation. Such, the applicant submitted the Construction Environmental Management Plan, the EMP, for determination by way of conditioned discharge at likely an earlier venture than otherwise would have been expected, with the information only required as a pre-commencement of development condition. The applicant worked positively with the county and district councils, and the campus has been approved. I'll just move briefly on to the reason why we're here, the council call-in. So the application was called in on the following grounds. Morgan Mews, which is the principal access, as I'll get on to in a moment, is the only access point to their proposed development, and this is completely inappropriate, not only for the duration of the construction of 200 homes, but also once completed. The traffic congestion would be horrendous and impact on the residents and visitors. We'd also have serious safety concerns. So I'll just briefly click through some site photographs, which were all taken within a relatively small radius, but shows the proposed access road on Morgan Mews, as well as views away to the east, which you can see in photograph 2. And then similarly, slightly further along for photograph 3, and just stepping back a little bit for photograph 4. Photograph 5 just shows sort of a vista across the site, looking in a westward orientation, and photograph 6 looks sort of southwest, effectively. This slide shows an extract from the submitted revised planning layout, which shows how the site is proposed to come forward, and I'll spend some time discussing each of the reserve matters in turn. I'll briefly move ahead to this slide, which shows the movement and access hierarchy plan submitted in the approved site-specific design code. As can be seen, the site would be served principally by way of vehicular and pedestrian access from Morgan Mews. That was approved in the outline consent, with the primary central street effectively forming a loop within the site, with secondary streets and private driveways and courtyards extending out to access other parts of the site. Also note the proposed emergency vehicular link, which would connect to Osprey Street and which was approved through the outline consent previously discussed. The internal highway network has been designed to 20 mph speed limits, whilst the informal alignment of the highway provides traffic calming qualities. There's also the potential for additional traffic calming features to be delivered, subject to detailed discussions post-planning between the applicant and Staffordshire County Council. A continuous footpath leads around the eastern fringe of the site in a north-south orientation, connecting the built form of the open space, play and allotments areas to the north of the site, as well as enabling connectivity with the existing phase 1 site to the east. Not shown clearly on this plan is also the footpath link, which effectively splits the central area of built form, which serves to improve permeability within the site. Policy compliant car and cycle parking is proposed, whilst each unit is to be provided with either a wall mounted or pole mounted electric vehicle charging point. The Lichfield District Design Code allows for 50% of properties to have frontage parking. The scheme proposes less than that amount. Per the supplementary report, the applicant worked with the County Council on a number of areas across the submitted plans, with the local authority ultimately concluding that proposals are acceptable and had offered no objection. This slide shows the mixed breakdown of the market housing and housing proposals, as well as the combined breakdown of both types. As shown in the rightmost column towards the bottom of the table, the proposed overall mix is consistent with the requirements and aspirations of Policy H1, the adopted local plan strategy, and is therefore considered by officers to be suitable. To this, it is proposed that the scheme deliver a policy compliant 65% of the affordable housing mix as social rented properties, with the remaining 35% to be provided as affordable intermediate housing, otherwise typically seen as shared ownership properties. During the initial consultation on the application, policy colleagues had raised some confusion regarding the intention of a small quantum of the 3-bed units to include a study room, or whether the study room would in fact be marketed as a bedroom. The result of this could be that the housing mix, shown in the bottom there, could no longer be strictly in accordance with the adopted policy, wherein Policy H1 there is an emphasis on delivering 2- and 3-bedroom dwellings as a means of addressing the imbalance of larger properties in the housing stock of the district. However, it is the view of officers that the application be determined upon the information submitted. The information submitted is that those rooms would be used as a study. Study rooms, as proposed, are not NDSS compliant, used as bedrooms, whilst all proposed bedrooms are NDSS compliant. Further to this, officers have not seen nor are aware of any evidence that the units would be marketed as such. Therefore, officers are content that the proposed mix for the site would be reflective of that submitted. This slide is an extract of the submitted revised materials plan, which shows the palette of materials elected for the proposals. Materials proposed have taken influence from the materiality found in the vicinity of the site, with reference to the adjacent phase 1 site, as well as elsewhere along the A5127, Trent Valley Road and nearby Lichfield. Per section in SU.49 of the adopted Lichfield District Design Code, materials must predominantly be red brick with terracotta roof tiles, which is reflected in the brick types chosen, unless some variation is achieved across the 4 different brick types. As can be seen, I don't know if you can quite make it out in the bottom right corner of the image there. Feature plots have been identified to terminate key vistas and system wayfinding, as well as to offer an additional variation to the street scene at key areas of visibility. From a materiality standpoint, feature plots would either be fully rendered at frontage elevation or part render in the chimney. The materials elected are consistent with that delivered on the adjacent phase 1 site, and so would assimilate well with the existing urban grade in this regard. On this basis, the material palette elected is considered appropriate and suitable. The proposed development has been designed across 3 character areas as shown on this slide, which serve to assimilate the proposals with its surroundings through being mindful of the character and essence of adjacent land or development and the position the site takes in the wider locality. Briefly, again, you might just about be able to make it out there. The character areas are the southern green character area, which is, as you may be unsurprised, is in the southern area of the site, which encompasses the southern portion of the site and has been strongly influenced by the adjacent Street Hay Green area type in the nearest relating developed area in the phase 1 development. Green Edge character area, which is around the edge, as you can see there, located along the northern and eastern edges of the site. And then the central suburban character area comprises the central 2 blocks of development, which are intersected by the entrance green, as well as some areas to the west of the site. The following slides include computer generated images from viewpoints within each character area. So for the southern green character area, would include a mixture of detached housing with occasional short blocks of terraced or semi-detached housing, and being predominantly 2-storey with some limited 2.5-storey semi-detached housing. The density within this area would be transitional with the adjacent built form to the south, whilst also having a terminating interface with the countryside away to the southwest and west. Green Edge character area would comprise of predominantly detached dwellings being 2 storeys. The area would be a lower circa 25 to 35 dwellings per hectare density in aid of assimilating the site with the adjacent built form in phase 1 and the surrounding countryside. Larger plot house types are to be delivered in this area and would include building details to certain plots, which include gables and gablets with bay windows, brick decorative banding and mock Tudor timber detailing to gablets. The northern part of the character area seeks to respond most directly to the policy criterion contained in the allocation of the site, whereby, in brackets, the scheme should be designed to take account of the edge of settlement location and manage the transition from urban to rural. Separately, the eastern section serves to assimilate the site with the adjacent phase 1 site through the orientation of plots and other placemaking principles. Finally, the central suburban character area comprises the central portion of the site, as well as that fronting the western edge of the scheme. The area would be predominantly 2-storey with 2.5-storey landmark plots to terminate vistas. The area would be slightly higher in density, reflective of its greater suburban essence, being circa 30 to 45 dwellings per hectare. A key feature within this area is the green entrance, located centrally within the character area, acting as a linking feature between the access pedestrian connection and the western areas of built form within this site, alleviating the need for a convoluted trip either north or south around the looped central street to those areas, as well as enabling positive placemaking and the landscaping principles to be implemented. As is shown on this slide, the proposals include a range of soft landscaping in a hierarchy of public open spaces, which would comprise briefly the following. The Northern Park area, I've not got the zapper, it's run out of battery or something, but the largest public open space in the scheme and provides opportunities for walking, recreation and play. The Northern Park would include an area of play, ornamental planting, informal recreation space, as well as the main attenuation basin, which you can just see in blue slightly there for the development. The Marebrook corridor, so just along the eastern boundary of the site is the Marebrook, which runs on the corridor, the green infrastructure for it runs along the length of the watercourse, providing a green corridor for biodiversity and a footpath. It would also act as an attractive transition space between phase 1 and this phase, which is phase 2. As part of the outline consent, a 5 metre landscape buffer was approved, which you can just about see demarcated sort of to the west there. And buffer is required in order for this scheme to achieve the necessary net gains of biodiversity. Proposed built form is orientated to back onto the southern and western boundary to protect and enhance the landscape buffer, and the principle for this was established in the outline consent. For the entrance green, which is the name of the feature that cuts through the central suburban area, Southern Green, which is, as I say, to the south of the site, as well as incidental spaces and pocket parks, are less formal, with irregular shapes and in less prominent locations, obviously from the entrance grid. Nonetheless, they serve important placemaking roles and provide additional variation to the street scene. Just briefly moving on to the private amenity space, all units except for the 1-bed affordable dwellings that have been provided with private amenity rear gardens. As part of the application, additional justification was sought from the applicant regarding this non-provision of rear gardens for those units, which I included in the committee report at paragraph 11.16. However, the justification was considered to be appropriate and acceptable by officers. Just very briefly, this slide shows the play spaces proposed, and the play features that would form part of that play area, and this is located within the northern park area of the site. Moving briefly onto the allotments, which are proposed again away to the north, at the northeastern area of the site. As you can see, its location within the site location plan has been identified at the bottom of this image. But the proposed development makes provision for 6 allotment plots, measuring square metres per plot, with associated vehicular and cycle parking. The quantum of allotment plots as proposed is consistent with the quantum reflected in the signed Section 106 agreement, secured through the outline consent. As shown on the submitted allotment proposal, the allotments would feature access gates, a communal area of hard standing, compost areas, a water point, a notice board with signage, a picnic bench, shed bases for each plot, and a litter bin. The final slide, the continuation basin, as discussed, is proposed to be located in the northern area of the site, being fed from across the site, which is consistent with the details approved indicatively in the outline consent. Per the supplementary report, comments received from the lead local flood authority on 10th July 2025 were satisfactorily addressed by the applicant, yielding confirmation of no objection. And finally, other aspects of the supplementary report include clarification on certain acronyms used in the report, as well as amendments to the draft conditions list and approved plans list. In conclusion, following revisions to the originally submitted information, it is considered that the proposals would deliver a much improved residential development. The proposals are considered to have come forward in accordance with the approved design code and illustrative master plan, and it is considered that the placemaking principles applied would exhibit greater visual interest and depth of character than initially submitted. It is acknowledged that the means of access is and has been a locally contentious issue. However, the means of access have already been established by way of the outline consent. The application relates specifically to the outstanding matters reserved for subsequent consideration. Council sought for the applicant to confront the outline condition relating to construction management early, which has been approved by the County Council as the local highway authority. Therefore, the officer recommendation is for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got 2 speakers now. Suzanne, sorry. Suzanne.
Chair, and thank you for permission to speak.
Go up to the, yeah. So if you want to come and sit here, okay, you'll have 5 minutes to talk, starting at the point of when you first start to talk. You will be notified when there's only 30 seconds left. Please don't feel.
5 minutes.
Okay, don't feel nervous. The microphones will pick up what you say, so just speak clear.
Perfect. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I'm a resident at Street Hay. This is my first time doing anything like this, so I feel incredibly nervous if my voice goes. My driveway is on, I'm getting, I don't even know why I'm getting emotional actually.
Big time.
I'm partially blind, and my driveway is on the Morgan Mews, and I really struggle to park ordinarily. And I have real concerns about this being the only access. When we purchased the property, we were aware this was going to happen. Get more confident now. We were aware this was going to be happening. So it's not about the development per se. It's this single access with HGVs. I witnessed last week 2 HGVs getting stuck because they've been directed from the A38 the wrong way. And I watched this from my window, about an hour of faff with these 2 lorries trying to get down there. It's this single point. It's a tiny little street. There's pets, there's children, and I have serious safety concerns. The parking issue, probably get my husband to park for me, who knows. But my primary concern is this. Originally, I believe that I think you mentioned Osprey Street, but my understanding is all the HGV and all the transport will be going through Morgan Mews, and that is my primary concern. The emotion, I think, is quite overwhelming. I've never done anything like this before, so thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The speaker on behalf of the applicant, Helen Dawkins. Once again, you have 5 minutes. You'll be notified when you've got 30 seconds.
Chair, the application before you seeks reserve matters approval for 200 dwellings, following the granting of the outline planning permission on the 1st of August 2024. It's important to note that this application is not seeking approval to the primary access connection from Morgan Mews or the emergency access link from Osprey Street as part of any reserve matters which is before you today. The means of access to the site was fully considered and approved at the time of granting outline planning permission. In terms of construction traffic, as the officer has stated, a construction environment management plan has been discussed and agreed with the local planning authority and Staffordshire County Highways, and the relevant outline planning condition has now been approved. The planning application before you has been carefully and thoroughly considered by local authority officers and their advisors. Throughout the lifetime of the application, a number of amendments have been made to the proposed scheme to achieve a development which is considered to be acceptable and appropriate in terms of scale, layout, appearance and landscaping, in line with the district-wide and site-specific design codes. The scheme provides a public open space, allotments and a local area of equipped play. Within these areas of open space, habitat creation and management represents a 25% biodiversity net gain. In conclusion, the proposed scheme will deliver much needed housing on an allocated site, providing 144 open market and 56 affordable homes, comprising a varied housing mix meeting the needs and demands identified by planning policy. Given the reasons as set out in the officer's report to committee, I therefore urge you to follow the recommendation for approval. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Helen. Councillor Hughes. Oh, sorry.
No, but I just.
Ashton.
Sorry. Oh, right, okay.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I mean, I noticed the percentage of affordable and social housing. Shame we're not up to 40%. But anyway, I mean, it's a step in the right direction. Can I have your assurance that these are going to be pepper potted and distributed around the site rather than living in one particular area?
Yeah, so the affordable housing units have been pepper potted around the site. There are certain areas where affordable housing units are put together, but that's not to an extent that those have been localised specifically in any one area or 2 areas. So the amount that's been distributed throughout the site was considered to be acceptable and appropriate by the housing strategy officer and by planning officers as well.
And I applaud the number of 1 and 2 bedroom as well. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps not material to the decision itself, but I have to ask the question, and it's to do with the equipped play area. Lovely to see that. I wondered if I couldn't spot any provision for its future maintenance and responsibility. These things are expensive. I'm a trustee on 3 separate playing fields, 35 years on one of them and currently chair. and they do need a lot of maintenance. Is this going to be handed over to the residents in some way, or is there some scheme in place for the developers to maintain it, to insure it, etc.?
Yeah, so that would fall under the remit of the management company, secured through the section 106 for the outline consent. And you know, I think the council are taking steps to improve the sort of review mechanisms that are in place regarding these management companies, to ensure that they are fit for purpose in doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. But in terms of responsibility, we'll pass over to the management company.
I think I'm right in saying the roads on these estates won't be adopted.
Well, on this site, the application site, or Street Hay as a whole?
I think Street Hay as a whole. But,
so the latest I understand is that the adoption of the highway network in Street Hay is an ongoing matter. The roads are, as I understand it, intended to be adopted. The highway's been developed in a way that it could be adopted. I think that was a big drive of the work that's been done with the county council throughout the determination of the application, is to ensure that the site could be adopted. And I'm not aware of any intention to not adopt the roads across all of Street Hay.
Yeah. Councillor Mears?
I noticed in the outline planning submission in July 2022 that the planners, the developers put through 2 routes of access into this site, and that was accepted. I know from the speaker this evening that she said that over time changes have been made to the application which have been accepted as well. So that leads me to understand that this evening, if we were to suggest that the secondary access, which is detailed on the maps that you've put there, is actually drawn in but not connected to the road net. If we were to request that that secondary access was incorporated into the traffic management plan, are there any reasons why that couldn't happen, to address the residents' concern and equally support the developer with their proposition?
So the means of access are not a consideration for this application, nor reconsideration. It's been addressed today. You know, the outline consent outline application did go to committee at least twice. Obviously, the first, as you say, the first time there was the 2 points of access, and that was approved. However, then it became apparent that the second point of access on Osprey Street wasn't suitable for a full secondary vehicular access effectively. So what you've got is an emergency access, which is of a smaller nature, which couldn't support regular pedestrian traffic or pedestrian activity. Well, it could, but pedestrian activity, sorry, but it's, that it's already been dealt with effectively, as what I'm saying. So it's not the application you have before you today is for the matters that were reserved from that outline consent. So appearance, layout, landscaping and scale, that's what this application deals with.
I'll just make a comment, but to leave that point there, and that is that I am aghast that we would build 200 houses, 1 route in and 1 route out, to allow all HGV and construction traffic going down such a small road. We've rejected this in Bradley, and I can't see any reason why we would accept it here.
It was considered suitable and appropriate during the consideration of the outline application. The county council were comfortable with it from a quantum of development perspective. They were comfortable with it from a safety and appropriateness kind of capacity perspective. And the district council, it's before my time here, but they, officers were minded to be consistent with the comments provided by the county council.
I'm going to call on our principal planning officer who wants to come in here.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to highlight that the only reason you're seeing this application before, it's not normal practice to bring a reserved matter application to planning committee. The call-in that was put forward is the reasons cited are actually technically not actually valid because, as we've discussed earlier, the points of access was secured at the previous planning applications at outline stage that were brought before this committee and debated and subsequently approved. So we can't move away from that. We have brought it, I did catch this very late in terms of the call-in, and we are bringing it forward as a goodwill gesture, so to speak, for the councillor that did bring it in and for the purposes that the speakers that registered to speak this evening as well. So I just want to highlight that we cannot reopen the debate on the access that has been set, that has been approved by this committee back in 2022. I believe, as Ian said, it does predate both of us, but that is the position that we're in at the moment.
Councillor Marshall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm just looking at page 20 and it's 11.21. I do welcome the fact that being proposed that we have walls which will enclose certain properties next to open space. I think it will improve the street scene. I really do welcome that. I think that's quite innovative in a sense and rarely seen in modern developments. So I'm very pleased that we have that, and I hope that it sets a bit of a precedent as well, and we can see more of that, because I think it will certainly help with the architectural design of the site. I've just got one question though. Page 22 now, under point 7. It says no tax blocked window shall be installed to any of the dwellings hereby approved on the site. I haven't really seen that before. Can you just elucidate what that means?
Absolutely, yeah. So that was a condition that I took from another application that came to committee and now is included in draft.
So
do you know what it means?
Me blaming.
It was a historical
If you can just explain, please.
We used to have window taxes, you know, in the 17th and 18th century.
That's what I was saying.
Admit signing the report off, that was a typographical error, should not have been included and deleted. So I apologise for that. Any confusion there?
Can I just suggest we're not suggesting that we impose window tax in Lichfield. That's very reassuring. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
A couple of things. Generally, if you have got that comment, it would be because in the design code there may be a window that looks blocked up and it's part of the design code of the house. The other thing is I've had a look through the plans of this consortium site. This is always going to come, this second phase, and I don't think we can turn it down. And the access route, I am a girl who I've worked for developers. I'm all for a one route in and a one route out, and not going through your first phase of the development. But in this case, there's no other way, and it is the right way. So I propose we just agree to it.
Thank you. I was interested to see when you brought the blocks up, the block plan up, that actually there's 2 cul-de-sacs of a similar ilk, top end of the estate, in case development takes place. I know it's outside of today's plan, but at least the site is taking into account that something may need to get land further on in for future needs. Councillor Wallens.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's mind-blowing to me how there's only one way in and one way out, and there is no proposed emergency access route, such as if an emergency does happen. I know the second entry is obviously if it's needed, but why can't that be included as an emergency access point?
It is.
How is it?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's the intention of that connection onto Osprey Street.
Fair enough. I'll take that one. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
If there is a cul-de-sac, there'll be enough of a turning circle for emergency services to go down there.
Okay. At the moment, I've had lots of speakers. No one proposing.
So Councillor Taylor.
I'll second Councillor Taylor's proposal.
Okay. The proposer and the seconder. Proposal is that we approve the recommendations for the land at Street Hay. In favour, please.
Oh, no, it's not.
Any against? Abstentions? Okay, for the purpose of those listening at home, that motion, that has been carried. 12 votes to 1 in favour of the recommendation.
It's 11 for, 1 against and 1 abstention.
Okay, I miscounted. It's 11 for, 1 against and 1 abstention. Thank you very much to the speakers. I know it is difficult to stand up and talk in front of people. It's very difficult for all of us at times, believe me. Thank you to all those people who've been listening at home, and well done for getting this far. I now conclude the meeting at 19:35.